Okay, so today I'm going to take you to the Paint People Eglinton location in Mississauga, Ontario, where I'm going to talk about some of my favorite paint tools to use professionally. We're going to go through brushes, we're going to go through drop sheets, a bit of trays, and then one of my favorite tools ever. It's super underrated, but super handy if you're someone that likes to roll them walls. I'm going to go get changed, and then let's go to the store. Come on, let's go. Let's start with brushes. Obviously, there are a ton of options. A ton of factors go into picking the perfect paintbrush. Some things you can consider are the firmness or the softness of a brush. Firmer brushes tend to stay a bit more rigid. They tend to last a bit longer as well. But a softer brush is going to be more flexible. It's going to be able to conform a bit better to different textures and shapes. Just try both and see what you prefer for different projects, different substrates, different materials, all that stuff. You can also consider having a brush that is wider or narrower. 2.5-inch brushes are kind of a nice middle ground where they're not going to feel too heavy for a lot of people. They're also going to hold a decent amount of paint, so you don't need to keep dipping over and over and over into your bucket. But width isn't the only thing. There's also different thicknesses with brushes where they can hold even more paint based on how thick they are, how much girth they have as a brush, essentially. And then you have the bristles themselves, what they're made out of. Typically, polynylon is kind of a good go-to versatile style of brush. Then you also have these Chinex brushes. What's great about them is they last super long. While they used to be recommended for oil-based coatings and things of that nature, nowadays I see more and more people just using them for everything, especially the day-to-day painter that needs something that's gonna last a long time. You also have specialty brushes like the Stinger brush, for example, and they have an added feature of this stinger tip. As you're doing your cut line, it's just dragging in that little bit of paint to sort of finish off the line really nicely. Sometimes it can flick, so if you're not careful with it or if you're not used to it, there might be a little adjustment period. But I've seen a lot of painters fall in love with this brush. But the reason I pulled this brush too is to talk about the handle. The shape of the handle plays a huge role in the comfort of a brush. And if you're using this for 8 hours a day, you want something that feels nice in your hand. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of these chunky boy handles. I more so have been gravitating towards a thinner handle. This Worcester Grip Tech is probably my favorite brush currently for a few reasons. One is the handle. The length of it allows me to reach higher places, so I don't even need to use a stepladder on those 8-foot ceilings. And also, it is going to be one of those thinner brushes, so it's going to hold less paint, which can be a downside to some people. But for me, I prefer that because over the course of the entire day, week after week after week, it's not going to fatigue my muscles too much. So I'm able to quickly and comfortably paint. And what's also nice about these Worcester brushes is the namesake, the Grip Tech technology, where you have this rubber padding here that's much easier to grip. And also Worcester, just more cost effective in my mind. I feel like you get a lot of bang for your buck. Worcester, if you're watching though, bring back those green rubber handle ones because they were so easy to use and really, really nice to clean. Now this next one might not be too exciting, but I'm a huge drop sheet fan. I love proper prep. I love covering the floor as well because it's going to make my job easier because I don't need to worry about things falling on the floor because they're already protected. And then of course the client, they're gonna wanna see that all their stuff is gonna be covered and not with paint. So obviously you've seen these before, a good old canvas drop cloth. Some things to be mindful of though, make sure you get one that is of an appropriate thickness so that it actually has a nice moisture barrier. The thinner ones can sometimes be okay if it's just a little bit of a sprinkle, but if any serious spillage happens, you might be in a bad situation. Now the creme de la creme would be something like the Cover Grip drop sheets. These ones are pretty pricey. There are comparable products out there. Not only do you get something that will prevent paint from seeping through, it'll give you that nice protective barrier, but you also have these little grippy dot thingies on it, which can stick essentially to any surface you put it on. So this is awesome in areas with hardwood flooring or on stairs where it is a hazard if your drop sheet is moving around. Get something that has some sort of gripability and that moisture protection. That's kind of the best of both worlds. You do also have products like One Tough drop cloth from Trimarco where you do have something that is grippy, leak resistant, slip resistant, but it's going to be a thinner material. So in terms of longevity, you might not be as well off as something that is more of a canvas material. But I have had pretty good experience with these and they are pretty cost effective. And another big selling feature for these ones is the fact that they're very lightweight. So you can pack a ton of these in your bag, in your crate, in your tote. It's not going to weigh you down too much. So that is a huge plus. And then from the same company, just a little wild card, Trimarco's Quick Drop. I like this for areas like doors where you have a very set amount of floor space you need to cover. You don't need to necessarily have a huge drop cloth, or even small closets. This fits perfectly in it. And it's also kind of padded too, which is great to sort of kneel on if you are painting trim. So there's quite a few options, but I think if you were gonna get one, I'd probably just go with non-slip canvas type of drop cloth. They work really, really well for most cases. Now I hope this next one is an obvious one, but it's gotta be painter's poles. If you're not using one of these and you're painting a room, I feel really bad for you. I see tons of images online of painters or DIY people with their roller and they're just rolling their walls with their hand. Without this, I don't get it. Go with a pole because it's gonna give you a ton of reach. It's gonna be able to save your back because you can just paint very casually, get a lot of work done in way less time. And some of the things that I look out for when I'm picking a pole is something that's gonna last. Like the Woosters are really, really strong. These Pro Everlock ones are great as well because of how lightweight they are. You can go with a nice heavy duty product that's gonna last a long time, but if it's gonna weigh you down over the hours, days, weeks, years of painting, it can take its toll. So by opting for something that is a little more lightweight, easy to carry around, things like your poles or your step ladders even, I think that's super important to at least consider. And then we gotta talk trays as well. You might suspect that my favorite tray would be something like this, a nice big boy, super wide tray, but it's actually not. It's very simple. It's Bennett, the Bennett tray, they stack. If you have multiple colors on the go in a house and maybe you don't get to finish, you gotta wait till the next day, if you stack these trays onto one another, it pretty much traps the moisture in so it's not gonna dry out, which I think is super important because some trays, they don't really do that. Go with something that is reliable, easy, and also readily available. You can find these everywhere. They come with tray liners if you don't wanna wash the tray out every single time. Make sure you get a tray that actually fits into one another and gives you a nice tight seal. And a very underrated tool that I always recommend to people, if you have a tray that you're painting with, please get a tray arm. These are a godsend. Not only do they hold your actual pole, once you've done painting for a bit, you can kind of lean it against this beautiful little pole holder. But more importantly, this actually clips and affixes onto your paint tray. So now instead of bending over and lifting up your tray and putting it down, risking spillage, or even worse, kicking it with your foot, you can pick it up with this handle. This is actually a handle you can lift your tray with and move to wherever you need to go. Okay, so I'm here editing this video and I realized I didn't film an outro. So here it is. Click on this video, will ya?